Э,
Эфир.
И добрый вечер, дорогие зрители фестиваля Видалайф онлайн. В этом году мы проводим фестиваль Видалайф на цифровой платформе. Мы рады, что вы с нами. Мы рады, что вы здесь. И чтобы не затягивать сегодня, прямо здесь и прямо сейчас, у нас будет интервью на английском языке с живым носителем ведического знания, с живым учеником трех великих гуру ведической современности: Шрилы Прабхупады, Шрилы Шидхара Махараджа, Шрилы Говинда Махараджа, Майкл Долан, иначе по-другому известно как Махайоги Прабху, Шрипад Бхакти Прабху. Он прямо здесь, прямо сейчас, он здесь, мы его видим. Давайте с ним познакомимся и поговорим. Разговор будет на английском. Good evening, Mahayogi Prabhu. I'm very glad to see you once again. You're looking very good, and well, I guess words for you. Today's topic is secret ancient civilizations, secrets of the past, ancient myth. So I'm quite sure you can speak a lot about it because you're at Mexican University. So I'm done, and you're on air.
Well, thanks a lot. It's good to talk to you again, and you know, you guys are my favorite people out there in Ukraine. Yeah, I was asked to talk about, they said ancient civilization, and then this morning they told me mysteries of the past. The secrets of antiquity are not just myths. These are riddles that shed light on our modern life. Why the world today is the way we see it. You will learn that the history of our modern life began not yesterday, but many millennia ago. So they sent me that this morning, and I'm thinking, okay. Ancient civilizations. Well, ancient civilization is a big topic, So
Yeah.
you can start in Mesopotamia, Assyria, Persia, Iran, Iraq, or you can go around the world to the Vedic civilization in Mohenjo-Daro. That's about 4,000 years ago. We're not really sure. We know that the Tigris and Euphrates civilization of Mesopotamia, that clocks in around 4,000 years ago. That's a long time ago. One of the problems with ancient civilizations is that they're prehistoric. There's no historic records, and by that we mean writing. From the time of Sumeria and Babylon, we got, written tablets. But it's very difficult to get into how they lived and how they thought, which to me is more fascinating. A lot of people are interested in what kind of weapons did they use, what sort of horses did they have. But I think that what we can learn from ancient civilizations, it really depends on how we view the world. You have to take in a lot of study to get into what was the Vedic civilization, for example. But as long as you're thinking, okay, I need to perfect a knife, I need to perfect a wheel. How did they do it in the old days? Your thinking is very mechanistic. So your worldview skews towards exploitation. And as long as you're thinking, how do I exploit everything? You're not going to really be privy to the secrets of the ancient world. So as long as you frame your inquiry around a secular humanistic worldview, it's hard to learn anything. If you think that my civilization is the best, my city is the best, my football team is the best, my country is the greatest, then it's difficult to learn from the past. I remember I met this guy in the airport once. I was distributing books. They don't allow you to distribute books in the airport anymore because of, national security. But in those days, it was freedom of speech. And I approached one man and I said, this is the Bhagavad Gita. This is ancient wisdom from an old civilization. And he looked at me and he said, I come from the greatest civilization in the world. And I said, really? So you're from India? And he goes, no, I'm not from, let me guess, Egypt, right? Because Egypt, 3,000 years ago, you know, Prince Tutankhamun was playing with a toy airplane. They found a wooden airplane in his tomb. How did they know about airplanes? You're from that civilization? No, 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 no. Oh, then you must be from the Greeks, you know, Plato, Socrates. No, no. The Romans? And I kept going, you know. He said, no, no, I'm from Mexico, you know. Viva Mexico.
From Mexico?
Because, right, yeah, you know, they had the Aztecs and the Mayas. But each one of these ancient civilizations is distinct and it carries its own characteristics. It's kind of common conventional wisdom to think with Hegel and Marx that there's a continuum and evolution, that we begin with, you know, barbarism and agrarian societies, and it develops into feudal societies and monarchy, and then we have industrial revolution, democracy, techno society, and it just keeps going up and up. And that's sort of a scientific paradigm that we've been told to believe. But one of the problems with that is each society, each civilization has its own dynamic. You know, it has its own rise and fall. It has its own summer, spring, winter, and fall. And each one of these societies develops in a very different way. For example, here in Mexico, they had a Stone Age society. There were no iron tools whatsoever. When the conquistadores came in the 16th century, they fought them with stone knives. But at the same time, if you think about what a civilization gives to humanity, okay, the Romans gave us the roads. They gave us the Senate, democracy, you know. They gave us the post, Roman law. What did, you know, Mexico give the world? They gave us zero. The Mayans invented the zero. So that was a great contribution. But even though they were living in the Stone Age, they had these amazing astronomical calculations that predicted eclipses for more than 2,000 years. And they had this sun calendar. They knew that the Earth went around the sun and that there were 365 and a quarter days. And they invented the zero. So even though they were a Stone Age society, in some ways they were incredibly advanced. So if you get into a more metaphysical frame, if you like, you want to get behind what were these people thinking? What did they know? And in that sense, if we talk about the secrets of the ancient world, what is more interesting to me as a philosopher is how they thought, how did they see the world, and what did they know about the inner self, as opposed to, you know, whether they thought that pi was 3.14156, how many digits they go, or they just rounded it down to 22 sevenths. You know, I'm kind of more interested in the philosophical worldview that was held by the ancients. So, you know, I'm sorry, I'm just talking and
No, it's
talking.
okay. What is this that we can learn from ancient civilizations in a metaphysical frame that you've been speaking on in this format in metaphysical? Is this something that we can learn from ancient civilizations nowadays, as far as culture maybe goes, or anything else? What do you think, Mахайоги?
Right. Well, okay. So one of the big things that people concentrate on when they talk about Angkor Wat or the ancient Mayas or the ancient Vedic civilizations, they want to know, how did it end? And this is a problem that we face, because what we find is, for example, in Angkor, they had an agricultural civilization based around rice. And that was because they lived in this place where they had a huge lake called the Tonle Sap. And that lake provided fresh water for millions of people. So they exploited it, and they farmed rice as much as they could, up to the point where it was overexploited, and then it died. They pushed it too far. So we may learn that over-exploitation, over-concentration is not a good thing. Normally when we look at the news and people talk about how a country's doing, how's Russia doing, how's the United States doing, they want to know about growth. And if they predict 2 or 3% growth for this year, that's a good thing. 5% growth is really great. But how do you grow the economy? Produce more cars, you know? You produce more machines. You have more people buying more things and, you know, sucking gas out of the earth and burning it. And that's good. But unsustainable growth is not good. It's like a cancer. A cancer is something that grows that's unwanted. And you can't control it later on. It metastasizes, right? It gets out of control. So in a way, the sort of growth that we saw in Angkor Wat killed that community. It was too much. The lake could no longer support that much rice, that much agricultural exploitation. And it died. There was a drought, and it wiped out the economy. So we may learn that there's wisdom in keeping communities smaller. This was something that was talked about by Lewis Mumford. He was an important intellectual in the 20th century. And he found that civilizations grow on different levels. They start out with small communities and villages, and that grows into what is, which is like a town. And different towns come together and they create a metropolis. And metropolis was important maybe 1,000 years ago. You had Cairo, London, Paris, Angkor Wat. Here in Mexico, there was Teotihuacan. But as the metropolis grows, it turns into something kind of terrible, Tyrannopolis, he called it, where the city can't contain or control its people anymore. It tries to control people through culture, religion, common heritage, or other restraints, but these things fall apart. We lose our culture, we lose our religion. And then force and military control are needed to keep people in line. And the situation becomes more and more Orwellian. Lies are told as truth. Slavery is taught as freedom. We're taught to believe things, and we're made to think that's my idea. But really, we're just buying into the ideas that we've been taught. And the last stage in the expansion of the city, according to Lewis Mumford, was called the necropolis. And necro is Greek for death. And that's when everything is just savage and wild and out of control. So the Vedas speak of Kali Yuga, and we're supposed to be in the Iron Age now, the age of Kali Yuga. So right now you can see what happens when you take as your paradigm the absolute capitalistic exploitation of everything. Everything is monetized. I'm talking to you, you're my friend, but we're going to take this and make it into something and see how many views we get. Even your personal communication is now monetized and exploited. What happens when you push that to the limit? You're not interested in God or religion or the soul. You're not interested in human beings anymore. You're only interested in how much profit you can squeeze out of a transaction. Well, what happens when you slaughter 10 million cows every day, or 100 million, or 1,000 million? I don't know how many millions of hamburgers McDonald's is serving. You know, how many animals can you destroy agriculturally? How much can you pump narcotics into the earth in the form of fertilizers and genetically modified seeds and things like that? until the reaction begins to come. And now, every 5 or 10 years, the reaction is coming in the form of a new pandemic. There was the H1N1 virus, and now it's the coronavirus. And they're reporting that in China there's a new swine flu virus that may sweep the planet. And with the concentration of humans in the necropolis, any airport becomes an incubation center for thousands and thousands of cases of virus. So, and this is not, I'm not promoting any kind of a conspiracy theory. I'm not saying there's somebody behind this. I'm just pointing out that if you analyze how civilizations die, they tend to concentrate power and wealth in a metropolis to the point where it grows cancer and it becomes a necropolis. So that seems to be the stage that we're in right now. And this is not the first time this has happened in world history. If you study ancient civilizations, you'll find that Babylon was a necropolis. It grew beyond its capacity. The example for this is the Tower of Babylon, where the idea was to build a tower up to the heavens. Well, that's a metaphor, but we're doing that now. Every major city from Kiev to Moscow to New York has built its own towers to the heavens. But what was the fate of the Tower of Babylon? It caused the destruction of Babylon. There was Nineveh, the decadence of Rome, the fall of Constantinople even. And then we think about Detroit or Las Vegas or Los Angeles. Las Vegas, where a man checks into a hotel and then decides he's going to set up a machine gun on the 14th floor of the hotel and shoot people who are gathered down below for a rock concert. Well, this is madness. But it's the kind of madness that you get if you concentrate a number of rats in the same place. They go crazy. So maybe the study of ancient history, can teach us something.
Yeah, exactly. That was point of my question, is that what I've heard when I was studying the university is that history is kind of cyclic, that it repeats and goes in the patterns once in a while. So that, and another thing I remember is that the saying that good times bring up bad people bring up bad times bring up good people, and it goes on and on. So in this case, if people would be more careful and attentive to the mistakes and the nice lessons of the past, maybe we can right now, so the modern society can evolve some problems that we are experiencing. That was I was saying, basically that.
Right. Yeah.
That
And so the other thing is, like I said, it gets back to your worldview. So if you think, well, where were these different ancient civilizations successful? And what you see is they were happy and peaceful and successful, especially in the agrarian stage. Also, different worldviews take on different characteristics when society is painted large in the form of a metropolis. So, for example, in the Vedic age, they understood, well, okay, different people satisfied different social roles. There's the Varnashram Dharma system of Kshatriya, Vaishya, Brahmin, and Shudra. Now, in that system, one of the things that sort of stands out as an interesting point of analysis is that the head of the system are the Brahmanas. Now, of course, India has seen its abuse in the caste system and so on. But if you think, all right, what if we make the leaders of society the thinkers, the peaceful people who are creative and intelligent and thoughtful, the Brahmins, the spiritual people? Why not make them the head of society? And then you see, okay, where does society go? Instead of making the militaristic, the nobles, the royals, the kshatriyas, the leaders, because then it tends towards militarism and conquest and emperors. So, of course, that's painting a pretty picture, like a utopia. And you'll find this discussed in Plato. And, Plato's Republic is a blueprint for tyranny. Plato's Republic is a blueprint for, an anti-democratic, authoritarian society. But personally, what I can see as a teacher is that small communities work. A community up to 150 people usually works. If you have 150 people in your school and you leave your cell phone on your desk and you come back the next day, it'll still be there. You get into a larger community, 500, 600 people, then discipline starts to gradually break down. So another thing we might be able to, learn or capture from ancient civilizations is that communities and societies work best. This is true also with spiritual communities. They work best when they're kept small and voluntary. You'll see that in an ashram, right? If you have 25 or 50 people in an ashram, okay, there's politics, but it's more like a family. You get up over 150 people, it starts getting difficult to administrate. So I don't know, what can we learn from ancient civilizations? It's a great subject, and I'm just scraping the surface here. But the other thing I said I was interested in was the spiritual worldview. And so if you look at different civilizations, you can see also sort of comparative analysis of their theological view. There's the Egyptian Book of the Dead, the Tibetan Book of the Dead. People have all these attitudes about death, especially because we're afraid of that. We live a short life, no? Hey,
Yeah.
I'm being summoned.
You're popular, Mahayogi Prabhu. But basically, what do you think? What do you think? Is it possible to combine spirituality with politics? Because religious institutes is somewhat mundane, something we can call politics as far as social institutes are on. But when we were speaking about Vedic society, where Brahmins were ruling the situation, Brahmins are some sort of like you said, come from Varnashrama, and it's something transcendental, right? Something Vedic, at least to say. But is it ever possible to have a nice proportion, nice balance, nice mix in a social of spirituality and politics, of something like mundane things, that make up your everyday living?
Yeah, that's a really good question too, basically it's the question of religion, right? And spirituality, or what
Exactly, yeah.
or what the Sridhar Maharaj used to call, he used to say, there's society consciousness and there's God consciousness, right? So the two are always coming in clash, because say you have a mystic experience and you get together with some friends who also have a mystic experience. You begin sharing and you think, wow, this is wonderful. I found someone else, a god brother, a soulmate. And then you teach your teachings and you draw other people into your community. Then you have sort of a successful, small spiritual community. But when it gets into the second generation, and now people are getting married in the community, there's children, you set up a little school, you want to preserve the leader's teachings, it starts turning into something like a religion. And then you need rules, rules and rituals and regulations. And gradually, as the society grows, the rituals and the regulations hold everything in place. So religion is important for that. But you may run the risk of losing the spiritual side, where you were trying to explore something mystic and special. And so, yeah, that happens. The Brahmins get corrupted by the military. They anoint the king as the god king, and they say, well, because he's connected with God, he's descended from God, he is God, worship him. And then you develop an authoritarian dictatorship. Or even, I was thinking, for example, in temples, we're told there's 9 processes of devotional service. There's Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, Padasevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakyam, Atmanivedanam, right? So, Rupa Goswami develops these into 64 different processes. And once I was talking with a devotee, and he said, there's 64? Like, wow. But see, if you think about it, what Rupa Goswami is teaching there, he's teaching about love. And how do you codify love? You say, okay, there's 64 different ways to love someone. You can bring them a flower, you can bring them some water, you can bring them some fruit, you can say, hello, I love you, you can write them a poem, you can do a dance, you can sing a song. So Rupa Goswami, he codifies 64 different kinds of devotional service. But it doesn't mean that if you do all 64 of those, you are now a realized soul who's going to dance with the gopis in Vrindavan. It doesn't work like that. It's called Vaidhi Bhakti, which means bhakti within constraints, within rules and regulations. We're trying to imitate, in a way, what the great souls did. But imitation is death. Imitation is a form of sahajism. So then we're told, out of the 64 processes, there's these 9 big ones, Shravanam, Kirtanam. But we're also told Maharaj Parikshit, he realized Krishna, God, through hearing. He heard the Srimad Bhagavatam from Shukadev. And Kirtanam, well, there's Kirtan, the followers of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu like to practice Kirtan. So you can realize God, Krishna, through Kirtan. You don't have to do each one of those things. Now, what if you're living in a temple somewhere and the temple master sees, okay, well, we need some money for gasoline. We have to pay the rent. But, Bhaktidas, he just likes to hear the Bhagavatam. That's his thing. He doesn't want to go outside. He doesn't want to make money. Or, Shrutadas, he likes kirtan. He just wants to play the finger cymbals and the drum and realize God mystically. Well, that sets a problem, right? Getting back to what you said about politics. There's these very practical measures that people have to do in order to survive in a community, and sometimes that clashes with the mystic side of things. So this is an age-old problem. But what we can learn from the ancients is their attitude that, I wanted to get this in before we finish because I know time's going.
We have 15 more minutes, so we have some time.
Okay, good. Well, they had a particular vision of reality that's distinct from our reality. Today, you look at something, and the first thing that occurs to you is, how can I make with that? I play the guitar. Okay, so my brother would ask me, why? You don't make any money. Why are you doing that? I do that, I don't know. It helps me somehow. It makes me feel good. Sometimes other people like it, and it makes them feel good. I can't explain it, right? But there are some things that you do for your soul that have nothing to do with making money. But the society that we live in today demands that everything has to be reduced to money making, right? That's a particular worldview. It's kind of a capitalistic worldview. And that was not necessarily the worldview that people held in the past. We're made to believe, oh, well, they had to go out every day and, hunt and gather or raise the crops. But when I was in Angkor Wat, here's something interesting. they have these bas-reliefs, and on the walls in Angkor Wat, there's these carvings of men, and they're playing dice, or they're just not really doing anything. They're idle, and the women are raising the crops and they're working. So the guide explained to us, well, it was a matriarchal society, and the women handled the money. You know, they made all the important decisions. And the men, you know, they were idle. They just liked to play and do fun stuff. So not all societies are based on this capitalistic enterprise that you have to go out and hustle and exploit. Different other societies had different ways to see things. The Aztecs and the Mayans, they believed in an infra-world. And one of the reasons for that is they had these cenotes, which are tunnels that go down under the earth, and there's vast swimming pools of clean, clear water down there. So maybe by contact with that, they got this sense that underneath us all the time is this infra-world, they called it, and it's always going on. Whereas we think that when people die, they go someplace, but we don't remember that unless, you know, it's the anniversary of somebody's death. But for the Mayans, those people who were dead existed in the afterworld or the inframundo all the time, and there was an exchange taking place. Anyway, all these different cultures have their beliefs, their systems, their values, very distinct from our own. But of all of those different cultures, really, for me, the best is India, because in India they developed a system of seeing, which is unlike anywhere else. And you could call it yoga vision, where we're always trying to explain to people what is the Atma, what is karma, what is the, you know, what is dharma, all these different principles. But in the yoga system, you're bringing all those together to create a singular sort of vision where you can see that consciousness is the background of everything, that I am a living soul, you're a living soul, and there's divinity within me and there's divinity within you, and we call that the Paramatma. And the ability to see that at all times and move through a world where Atma and Paramatma are important really colors the Vedic vision, and that it changes the way you see things and work. And of course, one of the problems that we have with that is that all these other ancient cultures, for example, the Egyptian or the Sumerian, the Babylonians, they left behind writings about money and kings. But in India, they never did that. It's really strange. The Muslims were surprised by that, and so were the British later on when they developed the British Raj. This is true also in Angkor Wat, that there are Khmer inscriptions on the different pyramids and buildings and temples there. And there's also Sanskrit. But the Khmer inscriptions always say something like, King Suryavarman VII developed this, and he put this pillar here because he defeated somebody in battle. But the Hindu inscriptions or the Sanskrit inscriptions, they just talk about the soul, they talk about God, they talk about the Paramatma, and reveal a very deep ontological fascination with the world, with the spiritual world especially, so that many of the historical writings about the Hastinapur civilization, for example, they don't really exist. What you have in that place is the Mahabharata. And there are those who they feel that, well, the Mahabharata is not really a scientific history because it talks too much about reincarnation and karma. But what you can find in the Mahabharata is a very extensive understanding of how karma plays out through the historical lives of different families, like the Kurus and the Pandavas. So, anyways, what you could say, really, if you want to learn something from the ancient civilization of India, go through the Mahabharata. And if you want to go deeper, then read the Srimad Bhagavatam. And I'm sorry if I talk too much here. I'm kind of
No, it's
waiting
okay.
for.
And actually, I had one more question. I think it's quite important for all those who know about Vedic civilization a lot, because Vyasa Puja Day is coming. And can you please just give your last comments about Vyasa Puja? What is Vyasa Puja?
Oh yeah,
What does it mean
Vyasa
for
Puja.
you? And what's the guru principle? One of the main Vedic principles is to have a guru. Can you please speak about Vyasa Puja, Mahayogi Prabhu?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Well, uh, in the beginning, there was supposed to be one Veda, and the word Veda means truth, knowledge. Uh, but this was very arcane and difficult for people to understand. Uh, so there was a special avatar of divinity, and he became known as Vyas. The word Vyas means one who divides, because he took a look at the one Veda and he thought, I need to make this clear for people. So he divided the one Veda into four. And then you have the Rig, Sama, Yajur, and the Atharva Vedas. And the Vedas themselves are very difficult to understand, very occult literature. They have certain hymns to the gods, and they talk about sacrifice in a general way. And that was still too difficult for people, common people, to really grasp. So Vyas further developed this into the Upanishads. And the Upanishads are mostly dialogues, almost Platonic dialogues, if you like, where, for example, someone meets death and they have a long talk with death, and death explains the truth. But then it was felt by Vyas, I haven't gone far enough. Any great author always feels like he needs to write another book. So he thought, well, maybe I should explain this in a more terse kind of philosophical way. And he developed the Vedanta Sutra. So between the Vedas, the Upanishads, and the Vedanta Sutra, all Vedic wisdom is given. But he thought, I should tell a good story that will really get to people, because it's not enough just to give principles. You need a good story. So he wrote the Mahabharata, which is a vast work of 1,000,000 verses in, 100,000 verses in Sanskrit, but it works out to about 2 million words in translation. And there he gives the story of Krishna. And also you find the Bhagavad Gita. And in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna explains the universe, time, karma, what is dharma, what is the soul, what is God. And he thought, okay, that's it, I've done it. He went to retire on the banks of the Ganges. And as he was sitting there, it just came to him, I've failed. I really didn't do it. I'm a disaster. I'm a loser. I wrote all these books, but there's something missing. What happened? And Narada Muni comes to him. And he says, Narada, help me. I'm lost. And Narada says, well, it's true. You gave the principles of Dharma. You explain law, the laws of Manu, the Vedas, sacrifice. But think about it, really, getting back to what we were saying about politics and religion and, God consciousness and spiritual consciousness. You haven't gotten to the essence. You should have explained who Krishna really is. Krishna is reality, the beautiful. Everybody likes the idea of the absolute, the oneness. But beyond that, we're really searching for beauty. Beauty is paramount. Beauty is the highest version of the absolute. And when beauty is playing, that's the best. All these other gods, Vishnu, even Vishnu, but Shiva, Indra makes the rain, Shiva destroys things, Agni is fire, Brahma creates the world. They don't have jobs, they're working. But Krishna doesn't have any karma to do. He's simply enjoying. The example of beauty over power is found in the lifting of Govardhan Hill. Indra wants to destroy Vrindavan, so he makes a storm. But Krishna, with his pinky finger, he lifts up a mountain and says, all right, let's have a picnic here. This is Krishna. You need to describe that. That's where you failed. And then Vyas takes his inspiration from that and says, all right, I'm not going to talk about any more political religion. That's finished here. No more social dharma. I'm throwing that out the window. What we're giving here, this is for Paramahansas. This is called the Srimad Bhagavatam. And he gives that. So, we worship Vyas on a special day. And we worship the Guru as Vyas because the Guru gives us the teachings of Vyas. Guru's position is very important because there's so many books. But if you ask the Guru, okay, what's the essence? He'll say, for you, chant Hare Krishna and be happy. Or he'll say, for you, go wash the temple floor right now. We need that service because many people are coming this afternoon. The Guru is a teacher who's on the spot and can help you best define how you fit in with the divine plan at any given moment, because he's sensitive to that. He's absorbed the teachings of Vyas, he's absorbed all that literature, and he's lived it, and he's absorbed the teacher's wisdom into his heart and soul. And so, coming from Vyas, there's a long line of different gurus in the parampara, or the disciplic succession, especially after, we say there's the creator who gave the Brahma Gayatri to Narada. And Narada said, expand the Gayatri mantra. And he did that in the Bhagavatam. And then those who were the best representatives of that, coming along disciplic succession up to Madhvacharya, Ishwara Puri, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, followed by, Swarup Damodar, Rupa Goswami and the six Goswamis, Kaviraj Goswami. And then we go down to Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, and then our own divine preceptor, Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, Srila Sridhar Maharaj, and then there's, the distinguished spiritual teachers and mentors of our time, like Avadut Maharaj, Bhakti Sudhir Goswami, and others with whom you may get some contact in this Veda Life Festival if you're fortunate. So, Vyasa Puja is a day where we worship the Guru as the representative of Vyas, who has given us these refined teachings from the ancient civilizations of India. I don't know.
Brilliant answer and brilliant interview, Mahayogi Prabhu, on this Vyasa Puja
I'm very
Eve.
happy.
Thank you very much for answering these questions, for being with us. I think those who heard this enjoyed your speech pretty much. Please excuse your interviewer for any for any committed apparatus, and now I'll go something in Russian. Всем спасибо, кто был с нами, кто это слушал, кто понимает английский и понимает русский, и слышит это. Оставайтесь с нами, оставайтесь на линии. У нас впереди еще много чего интересного, ведического, ведалайфовского. С вами был Махайоги Прабhu и Чутананда Дас. Всем спасибо.
Спасибо. Hare Krishna. Peace, love, mir, svoboda, Haribol.
Hare Krishna.